Welcome to the third edition of the 2012 Pizza and Politics Debate Watches at Lipscomb University, brought to you by not only the Nelson and Sue Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership, of which I am Executive Director. My name's Linda Peakshack, for those of you who don't know me, but also our co-sponsors in this wonderful endeavor, and that is the Departments of Journalism and Communication and of History, Politics, and Philosophy in our College of Arts and Sciences. And is our Dean from the College of Arts and Sciences, Norma Burgess, here tonight? We want to thank her for her support of this endeavor. You'll be hearing from the Chair of Communication and Journalism in just a moment, Dr. Mack, who many of you know, and whose polls at the beginning and end of these debates have become a regular and favorite feature, particularly for your students. Our other partner is the Institute for Law, Justice, and Society, headed by Randy Spivey, and the college's provost, the university's provost, Dr. Craig Bledsoe, who was going to try to come for one part of tonight. Is he here? We want to, no, somebody said no. So we want to thank him and, as I said, Dean Burgess for their continued support of this effort. Randy Spivey and I just came from a session on civility in public discourse. And we hope that what we're going to see tonight is an example of civility in public discourse and not one in which we see the lack of civility. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mack. He's going to find out where your thinking is before the debate. And then after that, we'll introduce our panel and our moderator, Alan Griggs.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody. Before we get going with the polling, as we did last week, we do have a hashtag for tonight. We encourage you to tweet during the debate. Hashtag LU Pizza and Politics. We have a gift card to Starbucks for the best tweet tonight. As Ms. Jack suggested, let's make it creative, but let's make it civil, and we'll look forward to seeing the tweets at the end. On most of the tables, we were able to pass around some what we call clickers. I think we've got about 93 or 94 around at various tables. I know we don't have enough for everybody, so if there is a spare clicker on your table that is not being used, just hold it up high, and if somebody else at another table wants to use it, feel free to. Fairly easy. You see some buttons. We'll use the letters, not the numbers, but the letters for your answers. We want to take the temperature of this crowd to see where you stand before and then after the debate. So let's get started. We'll start out in just a moment when I press the green button. We'll open the poll. We'll start out with a couple of demographic questions. So, let's see how you do with a demographic question. Please tell us about yourself. Female, press A. Male, press B. 74 of you have responded so far. The rest of you figuring out the answer or figuring out the clicker. We will give you about 5 more seconds, and then we'll close the poll for this question. And you may change your answer. If you press the wrong one, you do have time before the poll closes to change your answer. All right, pretty even. 56% female. Let's move on to the next question about age. Let's see how many first-time voters we have tonight. If you're 21 years old or younger, press A. 22 to 29, press B, and so forth. We'll close this poll in about 5 seconds. All right. 3/4 of this crowd, or at least 3/4 of those with clickers, are voting for the first time. That'll be interesting to see how you gauge tonight. If you will, please identify your party affiliation. With which party or group do you most closely identify with? Give about 5 more seconds. All right, 39% Republican. Democrat clocking in at 24%. If the election were held now, please describe for us how you would vote. If right now you're definitely for Obama, press A. If you're leaning toward Obama, press B. Leaning toward Romney, C. Definitely for Romney, press D. All right, 45% definitely for Romney, another 14 leaning toward Romney, so about 6/10 of you leaning toward or definitely for Romney. Tonight's debate will focus on foreign policy. So in making your decision about whom to vote for this fall, how important is this issue of foreign policy? Well, at least this poll is about foreign policy. I think economics tonight? The town hall. The town hall. Let's talk about foreign policy. And we'll close this poll. All right, 52% for 52%. Foreign policy is very important. One more question. Whom do you expect to win tonight's debate? All right. Pretty close prediction here. 55% of you predict that Mitt Romney will win. So we'll come back after the debate and see what you think about the results. We'll turn it back over to Linda.
Tonight is the town hall debate, and for many of you, the first one that you will remember of presidential town hall debates was 1992. That was the very first one, and Bill Clinton wanted to have a town hall debate during that election and was successful in getting it as one of the formats for that year's debates. Since then, we've seen candidates rise and fall on the way they acted in town hall debates. And we're here with a distinguished panel who has experience at both the national and the local level in these kinds of encounters. And I'm really happy to introduce not only our esteemed moderator, again, Alan Griggs, Executive in Residence at the Journalism and Communication Department here. Alan. And to Alan's right, beginning all the way to the right, and that's appropriate, I think, Bill, is Bill Phillips, the president of Bill Phillips Company, a veteran of five Republican presidential races and 8 Republican conventions. We're so happy to have you with us here tonight, Bill. Next to him, I notice y'all seated yourselves appropriately tonight. Next to him is the president of our college college Republicans, Emily Poe. That was a Freudian slip, sorry. And next to Emily, back by popular demand, is Lisa Quigley, the chief of staff for Congressman Jim Cooper, and a former congressional candidate herself, someone who's known in Washington for reaching across the aisle to find common ground solutions. Lisa, thank you for returning tonight. And finally, Allie Dalton, whose title I got wrong last week, and so I'm going to try to get it right this week. Allie not only is a student here, but also is a justice of the Tennessee Intercollegiate Supreme Court. Did I get that right? Great. All right. So Alan, the show is yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, guys. A lot has happened in 2 weeks. You've seen the president go from the favorite in these debates and the favorite in the campaign to looking like now he might be the underdog, in part because of his debate performance, first off. So Allie, what are you expecting this evening?
I think this setup or this style of debate will be good for President Obama. He tends to poll really well, even with people that disagree with him in the issues. They like him. He's a likable guy. And so I think this will be one of those moments where he can shine best. I also think it's a good way to kind of curb down the aggressiveness that, people are telling him to be more aggressive. But this style, you have to address the person. You have to kind of relate to the person asking the question. And then maybe perhaps, a jab at your opponent or kind of address the differences. So I think it's a good way for him to kind of make up for the 2 weeks ago.
So he's going to loosen up a little bit, you think?
I think so.
Emily?
I as well think he will do a fine job tonight. I also think that this is his chance. If he does not do well tonight, I think it will affect him permanently in the polls. I think what we're seeing now is a high of Mitt Romney's performance in the last debate, and I think it's just temporary right now, unless, like I said, he does well again tonight.
Lisa, he's got to be feeling the pressure tonight.
Well, he does. There were 10 seats 6 weeks ago that were the most important states for him for the balance of power in this race. And 2 weeks ago when we met, of those 10 states, only one was really going strongly in the direction of Romney, and the remainder were headed in the direction of President Obama. And today, it's an even split. 5 are either strongly in Romney's camp or leaning that way, and now we have 5 that are leaning or strongly in President Obama's camp. So I think it's probably an historic bump in the history of modern presidential debates, which really are characterized starting in 1960 with the Kennedy-Nixon debate. There's never been a bump that was bigger than the one achieved by Governor Romney in the last debate.
Did that surprise you? I know you were here for the last debate, presidential debate. You knew that the president didn't do real well, but did it really surprise you, the size of that bump?
The president performed as if he hadn't been coached. It was, his head was down. He seemed sullen and like he would take the job or leave the job. He did not make the strong case that this was a guy who was ready to be the leader of the free world. And it's not how he ordinarily performs. It was certainly an off night, but it's also the case that he is at heart a law professor. And so I think that format in particular, where he is accustomed to and comfortable with allowing his opponent his opportunity to speak. And remember, he hadn't practiced for a long time. He has not had to have a debate or a series of tough debates since the primary with Hillary Clinton 4 years previously. And all Mitt Romney has been doing has been practicing all through the primary season. And then I think he's done 100 town halls, I think, something like that in recent months. So he was very, very prepared.
Bill, what does the governor have to do this evening to keep his momentum going?
Hold his own. That's all he needs to do tonight. All the expectations are on the president because of the performance in the last presidential debate. And so Governor Romney needs to not embarrass himself in some way, not make some slip, just hold his own. And unless the president does something outstanding, Romney, and he will probably come out, both of them come out pretty good tonight.
Major issues you see being covered tonight? Of course, we have the town hall format where we have average citizens asking questions. What do you think they're going to be asking?
Well, I think the format is terrible for anybody except Bill Clinton. And I was assistant campaign manager in 1992, and I hated that night because Bill Clinton can do it. No one else has been able to do it as well as he has. And I don't expect they will. But the questions, they could come from left field. You've got Candy Crowley that's going to vet them, but they could be on anything. So they've got to be on their toes and ready for whatever comes up. I think foreign policy will come up tonight, even though Monday night is the official foreign policy. And I'm sure somehow the governor will get the word Libya into the conversation at some point. Possibly Afghanistan, but my gut tells me that neither candidate would really like to discuss Afghanistan. So.
Lisa, what's the president going to do as far as his answers? What do you think he's anticipating this evening in terms of questions from the audience?
You know, I think that the president is going to be, is expecting to be asked the question, you know, why aren't things better? Because a lot of folks in these states, in these 10 states, because remember that's really what we're focusing on, is the popular vote in 10 states, is a lot of those states are still really hurting. Several of them are just not out of the recession and don't really show signs of going in that direction too quickly very soon. So I think that he's going to be asked to define for those people in the audience, you know, what's he going to do that he hasn't done in the last 4 years. This should be a pretty good setting for him. He is somebody that is warm and can relate to people, and I think he'll be able to move around the stage a bit, and it should be a better format. But I think that Governor Romney will perform similarly well. I think he will be able to really reach out, and he has done a terrific job of perfecting the personal stories that he's encountered along the campaign trail. So I think you will see probably both of them doing a little bit more of that.
Okay, Emily, what do you want to see as a young adult? What do you want to see discussed tonight? And
I want
I'll
to see
ask
the
Allie
economy.
same question. Go ahead.
I want to see the economy discussed, because coming to an institution that is maybe more expensive than one back home in Ohio where I'm from, I want to make sure that this investment was worth it. Am I going to get a job at a college, and am I going to be able to succeed in our economy now? So I really want to see that discussed. I also want to see foreign policy discussed. That is something that is concerning to me, because without a good, strong national defense, I feel like the economy, it doesn't matter what it does if we can't protect ourselves. So I also want to see some foreign policy.
Okay, Allie?
I think education will definitely pop up, whether it's the cost of attendance or accessibility of attending college. And hoping to go to law school, I do hope that there's some kind of aid available for me after this. So I think that that might be something that comes up. I would be interested to hear about immigration. That's something that hasn't popped up just yet, and I think that that might be something that people might ask. I think foreign policy would be also something important on my list, and of course women's issues. I definitely hope that that comes up again.
We've talked a little bit about format and the town hall meeting type of format. It has made or broken some of these candidates recently. We remember the famous picture of George H.W. Bush. Oh yeah, looking at his watch, saying, "How much longer do I have to do this?" Yeah. At least that's what I think he was thinking. Yeah, when is it going to be over? You talked about Bill Clinton. And now we have Candy Crowley, who is the moderator from CNN tonight, already saying that she's going to sort of break with the format a little bit. And both camps have already complained about this, so that's probably a record already before the debate. Complaints have been piling in. Is this going to help Governor Romney in terms of breaking with the format a little bit? Do you think he's loose enough to be able to do that? I'll ask the same thing about the president in a second.
Yeah, I do think that he's flexible enough that he can break from the format. And they announced, about an hour ago, that the commission has, they called it expanded the discussion period. And when they were asked, why did you change the rules, they said, we didn't change them, we expanded it. But I think that's to keep Candy in check tonight. Okay. So that tomorrow she won't be the story like Jim Lehrer was, that the story will be about the debate.
Well, what do you think about that now? Do you think really that she ought to have the right, I guess, or the opportunity to dig in a little bit more on these questions?
Well, you're asking the guy that doesn't like this format.
Okay. Let me ask somebody who might like it. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think if she's going to be the moderator, she needs the ability to moderate the discussion. And if they're missing the mark, somebody ought to say, well, wait a minute, you didn't answer that question.
I also think that this is the kind of format where the moderators are not the stars. In the previous debates, you've seen 3 people that are on camera. And this time, you're going to see the 2 principals, you're going to see Candy Crowley, and you're going to see average Americans. I think this audience is mostly people that are independent, that have not yet committed to one candidate or another. And this is my favorite format, because I think the American people are really smart, And I think that they ask good questions, and I think they expect to have their questions answered. And politicians are really good at not answering questions, particularly to people that are media professionals, and they find it much, much harder, to avoid the questions with just the average citizen.
Emily, let me ask you this. I'll ask Allie too, but how do college students, young adults, react to debates like this? I mean, do they get involved, or do they pretty much just sort of not watch them, or what?
Well, I think this one is one that's definitely being watched. I think the polls show that. The vice presidential debate last week, I feel is why people don't watch debates. It was there was no good content that came from it. So I think the students are interested in good civil discussions of, this is my policy, take it or leave it. This is my policy, take it or leave it. And I think we're interested in that. And I hope we get to see that tonight.
I think young people are discounted a lot, which sometimes makes me a little angry. I do think that a lot of people care about it, and I think especially this debate is something that you can look at and see a person like yourself and be able, whether it's a young person or an older person, you can see somebody like an actual person, a face to the issue. And so I think that this might be more interesting, and I always love to just watch the Twitter feed on the debate and see what students are saying about it.
All right, what are they telling President Obama right now behind the scenes with 3 minutes to go?
I think they're telling the president, I don't think they're over preparing the president now. We're not going to see a different guy, right? I mean, you're not going to see suddenly someone come out who's incredibly combative and who is going to own the stage and who's going to morph into something that he's not.
No Joe Biden, right?
I don't think you're going to see Biden, but I don't think you'd see Biden really out of anybody. Bill's right. Nobody can do this like Bill Clinton. I think Obama is going to be able to I think he'll be able to carry his own in this one.
What are they telling the governor?
Look presidential, stay on message. The economy, jobs.
Any zingers tonight predicted? Anybody?
No,
No?
I don't think either one will.
Okay, well, we're coming up on the debate. We've got another minute or so. To the audience, watch very carefully the nonverbal signals from both candidates. We had a lot of discussion over the past 2 weeks about the nonverbal signals from the president, even down to crossing his legs behind the podium. I was watching that to say, they get into second guessing and everything on this in Monday morning quarterbacking. But it is important, the nonverbals, the facial expressions, how they use the gestures and everything. Any last thoughts from any of you all?
I think one thing to watch for is to see how quick they get to their talking points rather than answering the question. Do they answer the question, or do they go back to what they've said 10,000 times already?
You think?
I think that the narrative that President Obama is going to have tonight is more about what he was faced with when he came to office, what he's done so far, and what 4 more years will do for the country under his leadership. And so as long as he can continue delivering that narrative over and over again, I think he's going to be able to make a convincing case.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, panelists. We'll be back after that debate, and stay tuned for a post-debate discussion.
While we get the screen back up, is Katie Underwood here? Katie had a tweet that says, I did not pay $120,000 to get a job in factories. Where are the ideas to bring in more conceptual jobs in America? So, Katie, if you're here, you can pick up your gift card, Starbucks. Congratulations. If you will, get your clickers ready, and we'll ask a couple more questions. All right, in your opinion, who won? If you think Barack Obama did, press A. If you think Mitt Romney did, press B. We will close this poll in about 5 seconds. All right, in your opinion, 58% thought Barack Obama won. So let's see if this had any effect on your vote? If the election were held now, describe how you would vote. Definitely for Obama, press A. All the way to definitely for Romney, press D. While you're voting on that, I'll pull up what your decision was before the debate. Before the debate, we had 45 definitely for Romney, with another 14% leaning toward Romney, 60% or so for Romney. And let's close the poll and see how the election would be right now. All right, so Obama gained some traction here tonight. I'll leave both of these charts up on the screen, and we'll turn things over to Alan. Alan?
From the students, Bill, your thoughts about the debate tonight? Certainly was entertaining, wasn't it?
Well, I have to admit I cheated. I watched CNN with the split screen.
Yeah.
And then also the reaction of their undecided voters, the chart flowing across. Whenever the two gentlemen got into a tiff, it would dip below to negative, but most of the time it was flatline. So I don't see that they changed, and I'm surprised at the change here because I didn't see the change of undecided voters. I guess that was a dramatic statement. But I think both gentlemen accomplished what they wanted to. The president showed that he is alive, that his heart's beating, and he was pretty effective at it. And I think the governor held his own, and in the split screen, I didn't see either one of them get flustered while the other one was speaking. I could see them getting under each other's skin a little bit. But
Yeah. Lisa, what about you?
Well, just as 2 weeks ago, I was in agreement with this group that President Obama had not done well, and all of my adjectives were negative for his performance, and those were positive for Romney. I agree with this crowd that I thought he did very well tonight, and I thought that he won, although I think that what they really showed tonight is the contrast in styles. And I think that one of the things they were able to get across tonight is that if you're for Romney and you're for his style and you sort of are already there, you know, he did it for you, right? And I think that with President Obama, as a contrast to 2 weeks ago, if you were looking for him to deliver, I think he did that this time, where he didn't 2 weeks ago. I thought that some of the adjectives that I used, you know, with Romney, I thought he was energetic. I thought he was totally on message. I thought that a lot of times he did what he's skillfully done through this campaign is sort of have one position that those of us who follow this closely know is now a completely different position. But I think he doesn't really show any shame, kind of changing his mind and saying something completely different than he said before, and very much on message. And I thought that the president said several times what he says isn't true, which was where he had been criticized for in the last debate for not pointing out inconsistencies. I thought that Obama was very wonky, very speechy. I thought he kind of had a programmatic answer, like, well, I've got a program for that and I've got a program for the other, which I think reinforces the idea that the big government idea. I thought he could have been better at relating to people a little bit more on a personal level, rather than shifting right back to sort of what his administration had done. I mean, Bill Clinton is the master at this, right? The secretary of explaining stuff. And so those Democrats are always hoping to see him come out in our candidates, and it'll never happen again. So we have to just get over it.
What's the discussion going to be about tomorrow in the national press, you two, before we get to the students? What do you think?
Well, I think that they will notice that the president did come back strong tonight. I think I agree that he stayed on programs a little too much, but he wasn't so much a law professor tonight. I think that both campaigns, their talking points are well and alive, and they used them over and over. No matter the question, they would get back to their script that they've been using over and over. So.
I thought that one of the highlights of Governor Romney's speech, which was when he described his putting together his cabinet. He's very focused on the fact that women have a very big role to play in the outcome of this election. And I think what he described as going out and finding qualified women, and he didn't mention it, but his lieutenant governor was a woman. I thought he did a terrific job in that. The other part of the exchange, I just wrote stupid across the paper, was this continued argument, this proxy for this problem that the president apparently has on foreign policy by talking about the disaster in Libya. You know, my boss is on the committee, Oversight and Government Reform, and they had a hearing on it last week, and we wouldn't have been even having the hearing if this had been March, right? We were only having the hearing because it was just a few weeks before the election, and the Libya disaster, which is such a tragedy for those families, had become proxy for some giant foreign policy failing, which I think most experts just sort of look at this and go, it is a tough duty serving in the Middle East. It is tough duty serving in these areas, and people know going into it that things can happen. And so I sort of thought that maybe the public was kind of lost on that. Like, why is it that we're talking about Libya so much? I mean, really, Libya is not sort of the hinge of the United States' relationship to the world.
Allie, we finally heard something tonight on women's issues, on immigration. What else did you like or not like about it?
I didn't like, actually, I would have to disagree a little bit with the binders full of women comment. It's actually Tumblr now, so if you want to go check it out, it's actually pretty funny. I think that he mischaracterized women, even talking about flexible schedules by mentioning they have to go home and cook dinner, which my husband actually cooks dinner, so I don't have to worry about that. But I was glad that President Obama brought up the Lilly Ledbetter Act. I think it is really important, and I thought it was interesting that Mitt Romney did not address it. He has never really said whether he's for it or not, but Paul Ryan did vote against it. So I thought it was interesting that he kind of got quiet, you know, regarding that. But I did think it was good that President Obama brought it up consistently after, because I do think that that's something that matters to not just women, but families altogether. So I was glad to see that. And then to the immigration, I was glad that they brought up immigration. I think that sometimes they just simplify it too much. Both candidates is not as easy as just stapling a green card to a diploma, as nice as that idea is. My family immigrated here, and it took us a really long time to go through all the legal processes of getting our green card. So I think that, you know, definitely working on expediting things like that is important, but I think it's a very simplistic approach that some people are not familiar with, and having experienced it, I wish that they would have actually said something of a little more substance.
Okay, Emily, your thoughts?
I liked the fact that he actually brought up Fast and Furious tonight. That's something that has weighed heavily on my heart and on my mind. And there's been cover-up after cover-up, kind of like with the Libya attack. It may not necessarily be the actual attack that causes the issue, it's the cover-up. And I didn't feel like President Obama actually addressed Fast and Furious well enough for me. And I don't feel that Mitt Romney actually called him on it like I wanted him to. So I wish Mitt Romney would have been a little more aggressive and a little more willing to point out the flaws in what President Obama was saying, and vice versa. I want to hear specifics.
We also had a very interesting question for the first time in 3 debates tonight on gun control, and neither candidate, once again, is taking a really, really tough stance on that issue. I mean, we're hearing the same thing we've heard before about that. Do we have questions from the audience? Anyone have a question?
Can I say my biggest disappointment?
Sure.
While y'all are thinking
Yeah.
about questions.
While we're
My
looking at
biggest disappointment is that most experts agree that our #1 national, our national security threat is our own debt and deficit, and it is absolutely the most important domestic issue, but also it is it has incredible implications for our international position. And I thought it was very, very disappointing that there was no discussion of that. Taxes somehow became the important issue, and
Good point.
the entitlement issues were not addressed at all.
Good
Yeah,
point.
Lisa is absolutely right on that. Not once did they address the debt. And it's like they want to push it away, both of them. And that is not a responsible approach to trying to be the president.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, we may not have a question back there.
I was wondering what your take was on, since this was an audience of undecided voters, do you think they heard anything from either or both candidates that's going to help them make up their mind to go vote?
Anyone?
I don't. I think they stuck to what they've been saying for the last year, and I don't think that they said anything that would persuade a true undecided, not tonight. It was disappointing.
Lisa, you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a draw. I mean, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, the American public being the American public, we're always looking for winners and losers. Winners, losers,
I think
anybody?
it's pretty obvious. I think President Obama won the
Okay.
debate tonight.
I would expect you to say that, but that's okay.
I think both of them won and both of them lost. They didn't meet the expectations of their supporters, but they didn't make any big gaffe, and so it came out a draw.
Okay.
I felt like it was a tie myself. I think once you look back on it and the fact checkers come in, I think we're going to see that Mitt Romney won. But that doesn't really play
I
into
would expect
tonight's
that for
winning.
you. That's okay. That's all right, though. That's all right. That's good. Any other questions? I see a hand up.
Okay, sorry, I'm being nitpicky. This is very specific. But when Romney was talking about calling out China as being a currency manipulator, like, that was kind of a red flag for me. Like, okay, well, what would the repercussions be like that in our later relationships with China? So, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I think the references to China are sort of what I call like dog whistle, kind of language. It's supposed to mean, we're big, big tough on the, we're going to be much tougher on those commies. I mean that it's sort of. I think that your response to that, to that sort of line of questioning is sort of the more sophisticated. Question is, how do we sort of deal with China when we are borrowing from them to pay our bills? You don't exactly go up to your banker and beat them up, So it's, I find that to be just sort of a very simplistic answer to a pretty complicated issue. So.
Yeah, I wrote a note to myself that Governor Romney basically said that Obamacare and China are the root of all evil.
Okay. And with that, I think we will close this debate out this evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.